Hi everyone, it is Saturday evening. This is our stress management boot camp. I am Dr. Jordan Leasure, the owner and physician of North Shore Proactive Health, a state-of-the-art wellness clinic in the northern Chicago suburbs. And we are talking about stress and movement tonight. And part of the reason this came up was because I was game planning what we've talked about, what we've covered, and I divide everything up in practice into mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. So I was trying to do the same within this group, and I realized that we hadn't done anything on movement in quite a while. So I thought that we would discuss movement tonight because I actually ended up doing my Peloton ride this evening at, like, let's say 7 o'clock, which is about 12 hours later than I usually do. My performance was much different. I like to do it first thing in the morning. I'm consistent. I get on the bike. I do it. I get it done. It is not necessarily, performance-wise, the best that I do all day. My best rides are usually later on. And today was actually the best for a 30-minute ride. It was to Backstreet Boys, in case you're wondering. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. I'm going to cover the 3 things I want you to be taking into consideration when it comes to movement. And hopefully after this, you will have a different view on movement itself and exercise. So number 1, you need to find something that you enjoy. And that could be an exercise class. It could be just movement, whether you decide every day that you're going to move a little bit more. And for some people, that's fine. The one thing I've learned over 15 years of practice is you have to meet people where they are and bring them where you want them. You don't make gross recommendations because everyone isn't able to follow that. So you need to find something to do. Now, when it comes to stress, perceived stress, real stress, we've covered that in a handful of different videos, what it is, what it does to the body. The hormones that are created, especially adrenaline, needs to leave the body. It needs somewhere to go. It needs to be used. And exercise is one of the best ways to do that. There's often studies that come out and say that you shouldn't work out in the evening. It won't let you sleep. I would argue with that, in that each of us chemically is a little bit different. And as long as you are consistent with your activities and you have a set bedtime, you have a set wake time, keep doing your activity. And if the only time that you can get it in is in the evening, then do that because it will help you in the long run. Now, what you decide to do, again, could be anything from, it doesn't have to be stereotypical workout. It doesn't have to be running, aerobics, or weight training. It could be gardening. It could be bowling. I was having flashbacks to my high school and college days this evening. For those of you that don't know, my son's middle name is Lane, and that is sort of a homage to my bowling days. Also to 90s rock, in case you are looking for the specifics. But you need to do something to move. Your body was designed to move, and physiologically, our body does not understand why these days this representation of ourselves does not get the movement that it craves. So you think of yourself as an African on the plain, and your day, what your day should look like is, again, you rise naturally with the sun. You get up, again, stereotypically, if you were a man, you took off to hunt. If you were a woman, you were taking care of the children. You were gathering, so to speak, and you were exerting energy that way. If you were part of the gathering tribe, you were doing a lot of squatting. You were gathering the berries. You were gathering wood to have a fire. If you were, again, on the man side and you were hunting, you were probably doing running, climbing, a lot of different activities that our bodies these days do not see unless we engage deliberately in some sort of movement activity. Otherwise, a lot of us spend our time sitting at a desk, sitting in front of a television, sitting like I am to have dinner. So you need to be deliberate in your activities as far as movement goes. So a lot of patients that I see will say, I walk my dog every day. I have a job that requires me to move. And for a lot of us, it's the same movement. So my game plan for you is to please incorporate a little bit of change in that movement. And if you need help with that, there are great resources on this page. I have had some incredible people as guests that would love to help you with that movement. So please post, please reach out to me, and I'm happy to help you with that. Number 2, in addition to adding in some sort of movement, is finding out what motivates you. So for me, it is absolutely competition with myself. I was in my best shape ever a handful of years ago when I was training for a figure competition. And believe me, by no means was I doing that thinking that I was going to win this competition. I was obviously going to be doing it all natural compared to a lot of individuals that use different, let's say, steroid enhancements. But what I found was that I was very passionate about doing better than I had done with myself the day before. I was very passionate about continuing and striving and seeing what my body was capable of. And for you, that may be motivating. Your motivation as opposed to individual competition, maybe a group competition. That's part of the reason that the different box gyms thrive is on that competition, is on putting people's names on the board. Who's on the leaderboard? What are you doing? Are you striving to meet, beat, compete with what they're doing? So find out what works best for you. And some of that may be by trial and error, maybe by experimentation. See what works best. I, again, received a Peloton. It's been a few months now, and they track what you're doing, and as long as you do something in the Peloton family, you get like a check for the day. So what I did was, there are certain days that I don't feel like riding. I couldn't ride when I did the peel on my face. I couldn't sweat for a week. So what I did instead was I did some stretching, I did some yoga, and I did a meditation, which was awesome because I'd had in the back of my head, I teach about the benefits of meditation almost daily. I recommend it to my functional medicine patients as an integral part of their wellness, but I had never had a consistent meditation practice for myself. So during that time that I couldn't do any activities that caused me to sweat, I started doing meditations, and I do it every evening. Every evening with Parker, we read him 2 books before bed, and then we do a sleepy time meditation, and he gets to pick who does the meditation. It's a 5-minute meditation. It's virtual. It's online. And I always thank him for doing it with me. I never want him to see health as something that I force on him. I always thank him for trying different foods. I always thank him for, if he works out with me, for working out with me. And when it comes to the meditation, I always thank him for, I allow him to pick, and I thank him for doing it with me. And that leads us into number 3. And this is a serious one, so get your pen and paper out. I want you to think, and this may be thinking back a few years for some of you, but I want you to think about what your parents' relationship was with exercise, what your parents' relationship was with movement, and how does that translate into how you view movement, how you view exercise. And we talked a little bit last night about what my father's relationship was with health, and what my mother's was as well. And I noticed in myself a lot of what my mother had done, and that was not necessarily had the best habits. She would go in spurts, and that's some of what I find myself doing, where I will be very dedicated, very deliberate for a short period of time, and then I'll lose it and do absolutely nothing. And there were times in my life I remember being little, and my mother doing Jane Fonda workouts at 5 a.m. And then I remember probably and obviously I'm sure there were things between this, but this is what I recall. Then when I was in junior high, there was a spurt where my mother was getting up at like 4 a.m, and I think working with a trainer and running. So she'd be at the LHS track every morning at 5 to run. And, there's also a time in there when she was working out at the Chicago Health Club doing the Stairmaster. So her and her friends would have these like Stairmaster races where they'd do these incredible number of stairs. But again, everything was kind of like this. And, you know, there were times that she was very dedicated, in great shape, and did a lot. And then there were times of absolutely nothing. So what I would ask of you is try to think back if there's something that you can recall. If there was, it probably was never even deliberate, but if there was any subconscious connection between your parents and wellness, and your parents and especially movement activities. Did you guys go for a walk every night after dinner? Or was nothing that you recall? Was there never anything related to sports, movement, hiking, gardening? Again, anything that's movement related. And if there's not, then I would take that as action itself and see what you can do to slowly shift that paradigm, again, for yourself, for your children, for your grandchildren. And again, we're not looking for a left-hand turn, but just a little shift. So if there was never anything discussed or deliberately displayed or participated in when it comes to movement activities, then I would request that you find something for yourself. So that brings us back to number 1 and number 2. So find something that you enjoy, incorporate movement into your daily activities. So depending on where you are right now, that could be something as simple as, again, depending on where you live and how open your state is. But if you're going shopping, if you're going anywhere, park further from the door. You don't need to put your mask on until you get to the door, if masks are required these days. Park further from the door and walk in. If you're somewhere that has an escalator or an elevator, take the stairs instead. I often shop without a cart, and things have changed a little bit since Parker, because he needs to be corralled in. But prior to Parker, I would deliberately shop without a cart, and I would carry either what I was buying in my arms, or I would just carry the little basket. And oftentimes it got overwhelming, and then I would carry, 4 bags out to the car. But that will, of course, help you not only minimize, obviously, last minute purchases that you don't necessarily need, but it gets a little bit of activity in there, and it gets a little bit of movement. If you drop something on the floor and you have to pick it up, do a squat down and then pick it up instead of bending over at the waist and picking something up. If you have the opportunity, workouts can be done around the house with a million different things. I taught a class the other day on using like soup cans for a patient, because that was all she had around the house. Especially these days, if you don't have weights, please don't run out and buy weights, because weights are they're price gouging on weights right now. If you are shopping for hand weights, if you're motivated by this and you want to start doing something at home, typically when you're shopping for weights, they run about $1 a pound. So if you're trying to buy 2 10-pound dumbbells, or let's say 2 5-pound dumbbells, okay? So that's 10 pounds total. You really shouldn't be paying more than $10 for those weights. So just be careful and know, and I hope that that changes. But there's plenty you can use around your house. There are plenty of free videos, plenty of free resources. So utilize that. Find what you like. Find what motivates you. And your motivation, it could come from music. Maybe you just haven't found your jam yet. And finally, take a look at what your parents' relationship was with movement. How has that translated to how you view movement? And how can we modify that so that you're incorporating a little bit more movement every day into your activities? If you have questions, if you agree, please like and share this video. If you have questions, if you have thoughts on this, of course, please comment. If there's something you want to discuss privately, send me a private message. I hope that you have a beautiful Saturday evening. Get some sleep tonight. Go back and watch my video on healthy sleep tips. And we will see you tomorrow. Have a great night.